Alright, so this is NYC Geek Society. John and Dom here. We just got done playing our first play session of The Last Guardian. The Last Guardian.
The Last Treaker.
The Last Guardian. Treaker. And
Treaker.
we got another Let's Play that we just did of that. So we'll put a link for that in the description. And yeah, so we're just going to talk about it.
So you played it, so what do you think? I didn't get a chance to play it.
So, like, my first impression is that I totally get nostalgic for when I first played through Ico on the PlayStation 2. And, like, I don't know, it takes me back to, like, being, like, when did that come out? In 2001?
Forever.
So, I was, I think, a junior in high school. And I just have vivid memories of playing through that. And it was the first time I had ever really played a game like that. I mean, maybe, like, I clicked around a little bit in Myst. Do you remember Myst for the PC?
I remember. I never played it, though.
I mean, there were different renditions of Myst also. I think even back then it came out on the PS1. But just, like, this sort of serene area that you just explore. And, you know, you even in that game you play as kind of a boy. So, but it was probably like a 12-year-old boy, and I was like 17, so...
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that far away from me back then. Like, I remembered, obviously, what it was like to be that age. He finds, like, this slightly older princess that he has to save.
Yeah.
And it just, like, it felt like childhood, you know? But what it definitely was for me, it was the first game I had ever played, and maybe it was just the first game of its kind, where you felt like you were developing a relationship with the character in the game as you played.
The main character or the...
No, with her, Yorda.
Yeah.
Where, like, through, like, what you said you didn't like is the hand-holding mechanic, but through that, like, you're two characters that speak different languages. So you can't understand her, and she can't understand you, and the only way you could talk to each other is through body language. And by the end of the game, I felt such a connection to that character, to her, because of that.
Only memories I have of that game is, like, hating her.
Because she didn't do what you wanted her to do?
No, because there would be, like, monsters coming and it'd be like, come on! And she's just like... And then she dies.
See, I remember
she's just like...
I remember it fondly because, like, I remember times where I did want her to follow me, and she was just, like, drift off and just start, like, dancing or, like, stepping on something.
And then, like, it'll be, like, as the guys are coming, and she'll just be like...
But that was cool to me. It's, like, it felt like she was, like, a real
stupid person.
Not stupid. Like, she didn't know what's going on. And no, I think, like, when the monsters are coming, I remember her, like, reacting. Like, you had to, like, defend her, though, because you had, like, a stick. Yeah, and they would grab her and try to force her into, like, this shadow dimension.
Like, I more played Shadow of the Colossus.
Shadow of the Colossus,
like, I was able to get way more into Shadow of the Colossus.
Well, so I played Shadow of the Colossus when I was a senior in college, back in 2005. And I just remember sitting in my apartment on campus, my on-campus apartment, just playing that game. And, yeah.
The monsters were so cool.
It was just, what everyone says is, like, it was just so heartbreaking every time you had to kill one of them. Because they were such these beautiful, timid-seeming creatures.
I feel like some of them, I was happy when they died, though. You know, the ones that were, like, a pain in the ass? Like, the first one was sad. I remember the fish one and the bird one. I was very happy when they died, because they were a pain in the ass.
See, I only played through that one once. But I do.
You remember the fish one where you had to, like, go under and you had, like, a certain, like, like air bubble, and then the flying one that you kept falling off and have to climb up the whole thing to get back on the bird. Those ones, I was very, very happy when they died.
Can I just say, though, like, that is amazing that even though, like, you had to remind me of that, like, I can't think of many games that I played 11 years ago. But I played it 11 years ago, and all you had to say was the fish thing, and I remember, I could see it in my head. Yeah. Like, that's how memorable those games were. I remember back at the time too. This is before Guillermo del Toro was besties with Hideo Kojima and trying to make video games himself. But I remember it was a big deal that it was. He said that Shadow of the Colossus, he believed, was the first video game masterpiece. Which is interesting because you could see where it would play towards his tastes and things, where he creates like these interesting
it's like creatures. Obscure.
Right, that's it.
You don't know what the hell you're doing. You're just like blindly doing something because you think it's right, like Snake, and it ends up being wrong.
Right, kind of, yeah. But so
just put these card keys in. Oh no, Metal Gear nukes.
So instantly though, like playing this first hour of this game like reminds me of those games and takes me back to this really nostalgic place. But what we keep talking about is the camera. That seems to be the main problem right now, where I don't always have complete control of it. I try to turn it left, it goes right sometimes. Yeah. And what you said, like, as the player, you just always want to watch Trico. And you can't. Like, sometimes I'm trying to manipulate the camera to see him. And, like, because he's about to jump on something. Yeah. And by the time I get there, he's gone. Or it's in a wall, or weird stuff is happening.
I feel like the difference between this one and, like, Shadow of the Colossus, because they had that same thing. Like, you had to be able to see these huge things.
Yeah.
But so they had those shots where it was like, you're, like, this big and, like...
Maybe you're going to say what I think what I'm going to say.
What's that?
I think it worked because you were in a large environment.
Yeah. But then the thing is, like, when you got closer, then it zoomed in. But because it's, like, you're squeezing through these little things, you can't really zoom out without being inside a wall somewhere.
So now we're beginning to piece together why it's a problem.
Maybe it gets better later on. Because in, like, the gameplay trailers, it was kind of, like, more open, and you were able to, like, see Trico far away.
But from what I've seen from other reviews, other people complained about this as well.
Especially that last part with the trees and the mess of feathers. That was horrible.
He just jumped on me.
It was just like...
And then I was in a forest of feathers, and I couldn't tell what was him and Trico, and I didn't know where it was.
Another thing is the controls, right?
The controls don't really bother me that much. But that's the thing.
There's more things to do in this one. I remember in Shadow of the Colossus, it was just like, grab on and slice. And
but that's why it reminds me so far it reminds me much more of Ico than Shadow of the Colossus. I mean, not only just because you're playing as, like, a young boy and all that stuff, but, like, the things that we're doing so far and, like, solving puzzle, trying to get from one room to the next, like, that wasn't really so much in Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus was pretty much just trying to kill the beasts, And the beasts themselves were,
figuring
like, a puzzle.
Out how to kill them.
Yeah, but...
How to climb on certain things, or...
But what's interesting to me is, like, I kind of miss this in a sense, where in, like, the PS2 generation, there were a few games like this where it took away control in order to make you feel more like that character. Like, for example, in Silent Hill 2, you play as James Sunderland, and he's just some guy. So when he picks up a gun, his aim sucks. But that is on purpose. And I feel like here... they're trying to make you feel like this kind of awkward, pubescent boy, trying to climb these huge things, maybe.
I feel like that's a stretch.
I don't know. That's kind of what it felt like when I was playing. Like, he's just stumbling over himself.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, control-wise of him, but I don't mean, like, camera-wise.
No, when you say control, that's what I assume you meant.
But there's camera controls.
Yeah, but that's what we just kind of talked about it. What do you mean?
I feel like you can't have one without the other, Like, unless you're able to control the camera. Especially nowadays where, like, whenever I play a game, I basically move the character through the camera.
Yeah.
Where you hold forward and then you turn the camera to move.
Yeah.
Like, there's not many games where it's like you need to move around the camera. Like, that's not really like they're not separate things. Like, it's become like
that's where it feels archaic because like it reminds me actually back in Silent Hill 2, it might have been in Ico as well. I can't. It's been so long, but I remember in order to move the camera, you had to hold down L2 for Silent Hill 2, and then you could move it around a little bit. It was before like they really figured out because.
So what did it do? Like a different thing unless you held L2?
Because this is what's weird because I feel like this is what this game is doing, but it's such a dated problem. The reason why that was happening was because in the previous generation, like PS1 generation, everyone was trying to do like cinematic experiences. And so that's why you had like in Resident Evil, like the static camera angles. And that gave a really cool tone to things because it was very cinematic. So when it moved over to like the PS2, Xbox generation, they knew how to do like 360 controls. I mean, but they also wanted to still make it look cinematic. And so they tried a bunch of weird ways of compromising that. But then once you got to like the PS3 generation final, like by that point, everyone's like, just no, you can't have it. You can't have cinematic camera angles anymore. You need to just have, you can control the camera with the right joystick. Especially since everyone was so used to first-person shooters and stuff like that at that point. But that's what's weird. Like, it feels like almost like... It really does feel like a game that, in that aspect, that was built 10 years ago.
There's a lot of things that are, like, up in the air, though. Like how Trico moves.
What do you mean?
I feel like if he had more of, like, a set path that he walked... it would be easier to deal with the camera.
But that I guess that defies the point of the game.
Exactly. So I don't really even think they'd be able to figure out a way to use the camera properly. Like everything is closed. You're in a closed space, and then you make that even more closed with a big ass beast that you're trying to follow that ends up like right behind you. You were saying that it wasn't like very reactive. I feel like maybe if it was like a more reactive camera.
I mean, we did see after he shut it off that in the options you could change the camera speed.
Maybe that would help, but
I mean, we should try that next time.
Yeah, maybe that would help it.
But
the fact that like, I feel like if they're gonna take control of the camera away from you,
then
like
just commit to it.
Yeah, like you know how they have like in Resident Evil or something, like you're going around and all of a sudden it stops and goes to somewhere else.
Yeah, or like a perfect like newer example of that is Until Dawn. It brought back like the static camera angles, but it also moves with you. I mean, like they had that in Resident Evil Code Veronica back in the day because it no longer had to be pre-rendered. So they could just move the camera along with you.
Because you don't even like know what's happening. You're like, oh, am I like losing control of the camera or am I supposed to look at something?
But that's
like
the thing.
It moves over and then you're trying to get it back and then you're like missing whatever you're supposed to be looking at.
Yeah, they want you to do... It's like they can't decide what they want you to be able to do. And let me... But that's the thing. I could excuse it and I understand what's happening at least... because I experienced it, when I was younger. What do you think people's reaction to this game will be that never played during that generation? Has no experience.
Exactly what it has been receiving.
They'll just be frustrated.
Yeah, definitely. They've been developing it for how many years? They could have solved it. Like, they probably just didn't like. If they game tested it, they probably chose specific parts.
I mean, think about this.
Easier to control, Like, probably that gameplay demo that they showed where it's, like, more open. They probably tested that.
Someone that was 10 years old when Shadow of the Colossus came out is now old enough to drink. That's crazy. So that's the thing, like... I mean, like a 15-year-old playing this game.
Well, they did just re-release everything, though. So
no. That was last generation dumb.
Well, that's still like just
they had the HD
compared
collection
to like 10 years ago, or how many years ago?
Yeah, but like a teenager playing this isn't going to have even played those remasters.
I don't know if they'll even care to play with it. This is this is sort of like an experience game. Like you're in it for the experience. Like
right.
Nothing is really happening. Like that's what
something at least
that
so
I was
far. I mean, we only like played an hour.
Like you were saying in Ico, like it sort of like grabbed you with finding the princess or whatever. In Shadow of the Colossus, like you get grabbed the moment you see that first like monster. But this one, we've all been saturated with Trico already. So like the game starts and you're like, all right, I don't really feel connected to this kid.
I feel like I know him because I followed it for 10 years.
I don't feel connected with this kid or like what's happening right now. They kind of just like drop you in. Like I don't feel connected.
That's
to
just
this
the problem
kid.
because it took so long to make. You know what I mean?
But these are like excuses that aren't like. You can't just be like, all right, I understand. They had long enough to figure it out, you know. Like I feel like they could have came with a better intro. Like if it would have started, like with this kid in his village or whatever. Like they sort of showed that like kids playing in the village. So if you would have started as this kid in the village and he's like, oh, what's that? And like clambers into this place and then falls and then wakes up and there's a monster next to him.
Yeah, I just connected. That thing that we saw at the beginning in the video, he probably fell in there.
How much more like involved with this kid in this story would you have been if there was like something leading you to where you were? But it's just
this is like your filmmaking roots right now.
But it's just like bloop, you're unconscious, you have tattoos, and there's a monster next to you.
I didn't even make that connection when I was first playing it.
They just like threw you into it. Like
he was probably playing with those kids and he fell down a hole.
And it's like he comes outside and he's like, no, I'm going home. Wait, I don't know where I am. Like, where the hell are you? Who the hell are you? How do you just wake up next to a monster?
Yeah, there was no, like, real... What do they call it? Like, establishing shot?
Like, yeah. Like, Shadow of the Colossus, nothing is really established about who you are or what you're doing or, like...
Actually...
Anything?
Wait a minute. No, but actually there was. Like, in both of those games. In Ico, you see the men from the village putting him in a box in that... in that thing. And in Shadow of the Colossus, you see him riding on the horse with his lady.
Oh, yeah, true.
And place her on the thing.
Yeah.
So in both, you see how they got there. Like, there was, like, some kind of intro.
This is sort of just like, oh, you have tattoos and you're lost now. Go find your way home? Like, I don't know.
Huh, it's interesting.
Like, and he finds this, like, beast... I guess it's like legendary mythological beast, and he's just like, go home, leave me alone. Like, if you have a mythological beast find you around, like, be more invested in this friggin' beast, you know? Not just be like, oh, I'm going home, go away. You know? I feel like that's not very believable either.
It's hard to say. I don't know, it's hard to put myself in that position.
Okay, if I'm going into a situation where it's like, oh yeah, I wake up next to a dragon, and dragons are like fire-breathing man-eaters, and then all of a sudden
he's your friend.
It likes me as my friend. I'll be like, go away, dragon. I'm going home. You just climbed on top of it, fed it some like fire thing or something, and you're like, go home, dragon. I want to leave here. That's like not believable at all.
Fair enough.
You know? Like, you already think this kid is weird. He's cute as hell. I feel like that's I feel like that's really what they were like, oh, they're both adorable. Everybody's invested. You're automatically invested. Maybe you're more invested because you were like controlling and petting Trico, but I was just like, I don't get this kid. What's your problem, bro? I'd be like, stay with me forever.
That's a valid point. But I think we're both enjoying it. Like, we're saying some negative stuff, but...
I feel like
that's the thing. I feel like people 10 years younger than us aren't...
It's a strange game because there's... It's just like, figure it out. Like, Shadow of the Colossus did that. Like, I'm more... You know Ico more, I guess. I'm more...
I mean, they both
I played Shadow of the Colossus through like 3 times, so I'm more familiar with Shadow of the Colossus. But like, you didn't really know what you were doing or where you were going. You only had your sword, and you end up like roundabouts. This is sort of like, oh, this room. Maybe I have to laser beam this or laser beam this.
Well, that's why it reminds me more of Ico. That's
but it's just like
what you did there.
So far, it's just
like, it was basically trying to escape this place, figuring out how to get out.
Like there's like random barrels. Like you don't even like. I understand he needs to eat, but I feel like we need to get up to that next point where it's like, oh yeah, now there's like something like moving us forward. Because I know right now our only like.
Well, we just got out.
Our only goal is like get home. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think from what I've seen, it gets more complicated or in depth.
I know there's like soldier people.
Yeah, I know that we eventually end up meeting other Tricos that are evil.
I didn't know that.
I know that he becomes afraid of like these eye symbols that are around. And he won't move forward until like you destroy them. Like so it gets deeper. I know that. When or how, I'm not sure, obviously, yet. But yeah, I think those are good, like, first impressions. But where it leaves me is I like it, but I don't know how much it's going to appeal to, like, a younger generation. Which is unfortunate, because it seems so pretty.
Everything has to be grab and go, you know? If it's not, like...
Yeah, that's the thing.
I can do this.
If they could have just figured out the camera, then I'd say it's a sure thing. But so far, that's just not the case, unfortunately.
Everything has to be like automatic. Like if it doesn't work, as soon as you pick it up.
All right, so it's been NYC Geek Society. Like, share, subscribe. Remember our feed. Your Trico barrels. They like those.
Barrel Canyon.
Peace. NYC Geeks out. Geeks out.
Geeks out.
Geeks out.